Hi, this is Paul Kreitz, and welcome to Halloween DIY and How To. In this edition, I am going to show you how to build these animated flying bats. What could be more iconic for Halloween than flying bats in a haunted graveyard? How is it done? Well, I'm going to show you how, so let's get started. Now this is a pretty involved animated prop, so I am going to break it down into two parts. First, the mechanical apparatus, and then the bat puppets. But first, let's take a quick overview of this animated prop. We start with the overhead mounted base of the mechanical apparatus. The lower section is able to swivel, staggering the bats. To this base, we attach an electric motor with a rotating arm. Attached to the arm is a pivoting arm extension. This rotating arm assembly causes the two wire cables attached to its ends to move up and down. On the end of each of these cables are special springs, and suspended from them using fishing line are the bat puppets. The springs amplify the up and down movement, causing the suspended bats to move in a smooth, rhythmic motion, while the hinged wings, attached to a stationary section of the base with fishing line, gives the look of flapping wings. Here are the items that you will need to build the mechanical apparatus. Probably the two most important items that you will need to achieve the effect of this prop are the electric motor with a speed of 30 revolutions per minute and this specialty spring. This spring is very flexible and is 3/8 of an inch in diameter and about 8 inches long. I have listed in the description of this video where you can purchase both of these online. Additionally, you will need a 1x2 pine board that is 24 inches long and a 1x3 pine board that is 36 inches long. Fishing line, now you can use the conventional fishing line like this, but I prefer the moss green type because it pretty much disappears in the dark. You will need between a 10 to 30 pound test size. 2 wheels from a screen door roller assembly. Make sure that the wheels are the type that have the groove in them. A terminal lug, making sure that you purchase the size that accommodates this wire range. 2 2-inch deck screws, 2 3-inch deck screws, and 1 4-inch deck screw. 4 feet of 1/16 of an inch stainless steel hanging wire or galvanized cable. 2 electrical ring terminals and 2 electrical spade terminals in this size. Several small flat washers, a single 1/2 inch by 3 inch mending plate, and 3 1/2 inch by 5.5 inches mending plates. These are available at larger hardware stores and through their websites. 4 1/2 inch by 1 inch nylon spacers. You can find these in the hard to find section of your local hardware store. A number 8 32 machine screw. The number 8 refers to their diameter, while the 32 refers to the threads per inch. You will need one at 3/8 of an inch long and one at 5/8 of an inch long. Additionally, the same size nylon insert lock nut, one for each machine screw. A 2 1/4 inch piece of 1/2 inch PVC pipe. Super glue, make sure it is the gel type. Some multi-surface sandpaper and a sanding sponge. And the usual array of tools and supplies, including a set of heavy-duty pliers. To start the assembly of the mechanical apparatus, take the 1x2 24-inch pine board and on its face, mark center. Also mark 1 inch from each end as well. Then mark the approximate center of the board's width on each mark. Because pine boards have a tendency to crack, especially at the ends, pre-drill each of these marks with a drill bit that is smaller than the diameter of the deck screws. On the 1x3 36-inch pine board, also mark its center and 1 inch from each of the ends on its face. Mark the approximate center of the board's width at each mark. Pre-drill only the two end marks. Using a scrap piece of wood to drill on is helpful. At the center mark of the board, make a corresponding mark on its top edge and then mark the center of the edge's width. Flip the board over and do the same on the bottom edge 1 inch from the two ends. Pre-drill these marks about 1/2 inch to 3/4 of an inch deep. Next, take one of the two sliding door wheels and place the axle insert into it. Place one of the small washers over one of the 3-inch deck screws and place the screw through the wheel's axle insert. Slide 2 of the 1-inch nylon spacers onto the deck screw. Screw this into the pre-drilled hole on one of the ends of the 36-inch pine board. Make sure that the screw is straight up and down to the face of the board and don't over-tighten the screw. The screw with the wheel on the end should be secure and the wheel should spin easily. Repeat this at the other end of the board. Attach the electric motor to the center of the board by using the two 2-inch deck screws. Align the back of the motor's center with the center mark on the board and with the electrical wiring facing up. Place the screws into the mounting holes on the motor's housing and screw them into the pine board just until snug. Don't over-tighten. Take one of the 5 1/2 inch mending plates and using a small wood screw placed in the center hole of the plate, attach it on the underside edge at the pre-drilled hole 1 inch from the end. Repeat this with the other 5 1/2 inch mending plate at the other end of the board. Tighten the screws to the point that the mending plate can be pivoted by hand but will also stay in place on its own. We need to build an arm with a rotating extension that will fit onto the shaft of the motor. To do this, take the terminal lug and loosen the set screw to the point that the tongue can be removed. Now right now it has two 90-degree bends on it. We need to flatten the second bend, creating a single 90-degree bend. Use a heavy-duty pliers to crimp the second bend and flatten it out as best as possible. Use a second pliers to fine-tune the bend, like this. Return the tongue into the terminal lug and tighten the set screw. It should look like this. To finish this portion of the arm, attach the 3-inch mending plate to the tongue using both a machine screw and superglue. Do this by placing the 3/8-inch machine screw into the third hole from one of the ends on the mending plate. Then, using protective gloves, apply some gel superglue onto the tongue. Place the mending plate over the tongue so that the screw goes into the hole on the tongue with the two pieces aligned. Using a nylon insert lock nut, completely tighten the screw so that the two pieces become one. To finish it, use a pliers to bend down the short end of the mending plate to the terminal lug. To attach the rotating arm extension to the arm, take the 5/8-inch machine screw and place a small washer on it. Place that screw into the center hole of a 5 1/2-inch mending plate. Place 3 more washers onto the screw and then place it into the end hole on the newly created arm. Place a final washer on the end of the screw, followed by a nylon insert lock nut. Tighten the lock nut to the point that the rotating arm extension is securely fastened to the arm but can still rotate freely. As you can see, the 3 center washers act as spacers to make sure that the rotating extension clears the nut head on the arm. When done, it should look and work like this. Attach this arm assembly to the motor shaft by first loosening the set screw and then place it over the shaft, making sure that the set screw is on the same side as the flat area of the shaft. Slide it down over the shaft and tighten the set screw against the flat area, securely attaching it to the motor's rotating shaft. Next, with the pliers or wire cutters, cut two sections of the wire cable, both at 24 inches long. If the ends are frayed, first cut off the frayed ends. On one end of each cable, place a ring terminal. Crimping it with the pliers will secure it to the cable. With the wire cutters, make a cut in the ring terminal like this. Open up the ring terminal slightly and feed it onto one of the end holes of the rotating arm extension. Once in place, bend the ring closed. Repeat this with the other cable. Place one of the cables over its corresponding wheel on the end of the board and place a spade terminal on the end of the cable. Make sure that the spade terminal is facing forward. When positioned correctly, use the pliers to crimp it, securing it to one end of the wire cable. Repeat this for the other cable on the opposite end of the board. Next, prep the spring by finding center. Cut it in half with the wire cutters by carefully opening the spring at the halfway point, like this. On the cut end of each half of the spring, take the top 3 loops and carefully bend them upwards, matching the loop on the other end of the spring so that both loops face the same direction as much as possible. To attach the spring to the cable, use a needle nose pliers to carefully bend the ends of the spade terminal upwards, forming hooks. Like this. Place one of the springs and loops into the hooks and then crimp the hooks closed, forming a rigid connection. Repeat this for the other spring and cable end. To attach the two boards together, screw the 4-inch deck screw into the pre-drilled hole in the center of the 1x2. Place the 2 1/4 inch piece of 1/2 inch PVC pipe onto the screw and then screw it into the pre-drilled hole on the top center edge of the 1x3. Make sure that the 4-inch screw is straight up and down while going through each board. The end result should be a solid joining of the boards, even though they are 2 1/4 inches apart from each other. At this point, we can set that aside and start building the 2 bat puppets. Here are the items that you will need to create the bats. 2 3/4 inch pieces of PVC pipe, both at 8 inches long. 4 rubber leg tips, 1 1/8 inches in size. 2 small round furniture nails. 4 small screw eyes. Standard size heavy-duty construction or duct tape. Some craft foam, any color will do. 2 7/8 of an inch screw-on rubber pads and their screws. A small amount of lightweight spackle or epoxy clay. Super glue, the gel type. Thick craft glue. 2 jumbo craft sticks. Now they should be about 1 inches by 8 inches each. The fabric from 2 artificial fern fronds, each 2 inches wide and about 9 to 10 inches long. Flat white primer sealer spray paint. Spray and acrylic paints in a variety of colors, including blacklight paints if you choose. And last but not least, 4 lightweight aluminum sheets at 10 inches by 14 inches each. Now you may think that these are hard to come by, but they are simple, pre-printed posted signs that you could find at almost any hardware store. The bat puppets are a good size with a nearly 30-inch wingspan. I call them puppets because they are controlled by strings, or more accurately, fishing line. I have already pre-built one of the bats, so I will be building just one in this video. However, just remember that you will need to build 2. You can create your own wing shape, or here is a pattern that you can use by drawing a 2-inch by 2-inch grid pattern on the back of one of the signs. Be sure to include the 2 points denoted by the X's. Also, the base of the wing that connects to the body should have a width of 5 1/4 inches. Aluminum is lightweight, strong, and you can cut it with a heavy-duty scissors. With your first wing drawn onto one of the aluminum sheets, use a heavy-duty scissors to cut it out. Now I found it easier to cut all of the large curved parts and then come back later to cut out the smaller curves at the wings tips. Avoid having any sharp points for safety reasons. Flip over the cutout wing and use it as the pattern for its companion. Once the companion wing is cut out, pair up the two and place over a block of wood. With an awl and hammer, punch very small holes through both wings at each of the two X's. The holes should be made only big enough for the fishing line that you are using to pass through. Because the cutting process can leave sharp and barbed edges, use sandpaper to dull those edges and to knock down the barbs. Do this on both sides of the wings. Use the sanding sponge to etch both sides in order to prep it for painting. And remember, just etch the surface. You don't need to remove the paint. Wipe off all of the sanding residue with a slightly damp, soft cloth. Repeat this process to create the second pair of wings. Next, cut two 8-inch long pieces of the 3/4 inch PVC pipe. I find it very helpful to use a PVC pipe cutter. Using the manufacturer's printing on the pipe as a guide for true parallel to the length of the pipe, mark two lines, 1 1/8 of an inch apart from each other on both pieces of pipe. Placing an X inside the 1 1/8 inch space will help you to identify it later. Use one of the craft sticks or a ruler as a straight edge. Using one of the rubber leg tips, mark their eventual position by placing it temporarily on each end as a guide for this mark. We are now ready to attach the wings to the PVC pipe. Take a piece of the construction tape slightly longer than the 5 1/4 inch wings base and rip it in half right down the middle. Take one of the halves of tape and place it along the base of the wing about 1/2 inch from the edge. Pull the tape back and place the wing's edge along one of the parallel lines on the PVC pipe. Make sure that you are dealing with the X'd area of the PVC, that the wing's edge is evenly placed between the two marks from the leg tips, and do not cover up the line. All of these things will help with the proper spacing and placement of the two opposing wings. When the wing is in place, fold back the tape onto the PVC and secure it by using the craft stick to press the tape onto both the wing and the pipe, removing any air bubbles. Flip the wing and pipe over and using the other ripped half of tape, repeat the process on the underside of the wing. Use a utility knife to carefully remove the excess length of the two pieces of tape. Repeat this process with the companion wing on the parallel line that is 1 1/8 inch away. When done, it should look like this, with the two companion wings directly across from each other and attached to the PVC pipe with the construction tape, which is acting as a functional hinge. Next, take one of the jumbo craft sticks and place it directly over the top of the PVC pipe, where the X is. The craft stick will help to keep the tape from pulling away, and it also creates a tight fit for the leg tips. Slide one of the leg tips over an end of the pipe and craft stick. Push it completely onto the pipe end. Once on, make any adjustments to the craft stick and then slide the second leg tip onto the other end of the pipe. Make sure that both leg tips are all the way on by making sure that they line up with their marks on the pipe. Now, if your craft stick cracks, that's fine. We'll address that shortly. The bat should now look like this, and the wing should fold up without any obstruction from the craft stick. If not, remove one of the leg tips and make the necessary adjustments before sliding the leg tip back on. To create the face of the bat, take one of the rubber pads and screw it onto the center of the bottom of the leg tip, like this. For the eyes, mark where you would like the eyes to be and push the 2 small furniture nails into the rubber leg tip at those points. To help soften the flatness of the bat's back by giving it some detail, and to reinforce the cracked craft stick, take one of the fern fronds and peel the fabric off of the plastic spine. Using the thick craft glue, glue it to the craft stick and partially onto the 2 leg tips. Make sure that it is centered all the way down the PVC pipe and then pat into place. To create the ears, draw 4 triangles on the craft foam. Each side should be around 1 1/2 inches long. Using 2 of the triangles for each bat, fold them in half, creating a bit of a crease, and then check their placement on the bat head before gluing. If need be, remove a portion of the fern material. Using gloves, carefully place a line of the super glue gel onto the bottom edge of one of the foam ears. Carefully place it onto the bat head and hold it into place until the glue sets. Repeat this for the second ear. For the nose and mouth detail, take a small amount of the lightweight spackle or epoxy clay and place it into the hole of the rubber pad where the screw is. Use enough of the filler to fill the hole and have it slightly mounded. Smooth the edges of the filler onto the rim of the rubber pad. Use a sculpting tool or even a nail to create the nostrils and mouth of the bat. To create the attachment for the fishing line, use an awl to punch a hole into the rubber leg tip close to its edge and at the center ridge of the fern material. Screw one of the small screw eyes through the rubber and into the wooden craft stick below it. Do the same on the back leg tip, like this. Once everything is dried and hardened, base coat the entire bat, underside as well, with the flat white primer spray paint. I have found that most acrylic blacklight paints seem to not be totally opaque, so I like to give them an undercoat of spray paint in the same color before applying the blacklight acrylic paint. Once that paint has dried, I trace a wing detail onto the wings by using this simple pattern made from heavy stock paper. I use this pattern on both sides of all 4 wings and use my own custom mixed color of blacklight paint to add detail to the wings. You can apply whatever finishing color, style, and details you choose to really customize the look of your bats. Paint is also used to bring out the eyes as well as the nose and mouth of the bats. While the paint on the bats is drying, let's mount the mechanical apparatus and then attach the bats to it. Attach the mechanical apparatus to a solid overhead support that is at least 8 feet from the ground. Now your overhead support might be a tree limb, ceiling, roof eave, whatever it may be. You will want to firmly attach the 24-inch 1x2 to it. Use deck screws, zip ties, whatever is appropriate for your situation. Just make sure that the front edge of the 1x2 pine board is facing towards the viewers. Once firmly attached, you can rotate the 1x3 lower board to the right or left, depending on how you want to stagger the bats, with one bat slightly behind or ahead of the other. The long screw and spacer that attaches the 2 pieces of wood together should be very tight, so that however you pivot the bottom piece, it stays in place. When positioning the 1x3, don't rotate it to the point that the motor's arm and its attachment hits the mounting board above it. After placing the cables over their corresponding wheels, pivot the 2 5-inch mounting plates that are on the underside of each end of the 1x3 so that they are facing the direction of the viewers as well. Before attaching the bats, I am first going to test the system by attaching a fishing weight to each of the springs and then plug in the motor. This is how the mechanical apparatus should work, except that the bats are much heavier, so when they are attached, the spring movement will be greater. Also, here's a demonstration of why I used wire cable with rigid connections instead of a simple nylon cord or string. You can clearly see the difference in the two applications. Regular cord or string has a strong tendency to spin, which makes it very difficult to keep the bats facing forward. The wire cord with the rigid connections helps to minimize this tendency. We can now attach the bat to the mechanical apparatus by using the fishing line. The length of the fishing line will vary with how far off the ground you are able to mount the mechanics of this prop, and at what viewing level you want the bats to be. For the purpose of this video, I am using a piece of fishing line that is about 4 feet long. With one of the bats facing in the direction that you want it to, tie one end of the fishing line to the screw eye on the back of the bat. Thread the other end through the back side of the loop on the spring directly above and then back down, tying it to the screw eye on the head of the bat. This will suspend the bat off the ground. You can adjust the center strings so that the bat is either level or slightly tilted up or down. Now the fishing line attached to the wings will help the bat stay pointed in the right direction, as well as create the look of the wings flapping. So, using a second length of fishing line, about 12 inches longer than the first piece used to suspend the bat, start by threading it through one of the small holes on the top of the right wing. Once through, thread it back up through the small hole next to it. Tie the fishing line off. Thread the other end through the end hole on the right side of the mending plate directly above the bat, and then over through the hole on the other end and then down to the left wing. Thread the fishing line through those small holes in the same way as the other wing. Now before you tie it off, take the slack out of the fishing line until the wings are level with each other and parallel with the ground. Then tie off this end too. You can also adjust the wing strings. Repeat this process to attach the second bat on the left side of the mechanical apparatus. With the bats attached, the spring's length will increase to 20 to 24 inches. As a reference, I mounted my mechanical apparatus 10 feet off the ground, and the bats at rest set approximately 5 feet from the ground. So if you would like your bats to set higher off the ground, here are a few tips to achieve that. Use wire cords that are 20 inches in length instead of the 24 inches in length. Also, decrease the weight of the bats by using a thinner walled PVC pipe instead of Schedule 40, and by using 3/4 inch PVC end caps instead of the rubber leg tips. However, you will need to use PVC glue in order to slide those caps onto the pipe, as well as omit the jumbo-sized craft sticks. One or all of these steps will help to achieve bats that set higher off the ground. To hide the mechanical apparatus, paint it with flat black paint. You can camouflage it with some black material, placed far enough away so it doesn't touch any of the moving parts. With the bats attached, you are ready to turn on the motor and turn off the lights. I hope you have enjoyed this video and will become a subscriber. Have a fun and spooky Halloween. Happy haunting.